What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another video that was recommended by you guys, my viewers and subscribers. This video is going to be me ranking every state that I've visited so far. This will be 1 through 26. I'll actually be starting at number 26 and working my way all the way up to number 1. I have been to 26 out of the 50 states here in the US. Hopefully I'll hit that 50 mark someday. This is going to be a very biased video. So there are plenty of rankings videos out there that are just ranking each state based on different factors and statistics. That is not going to be this video. It's going to be very biased, but please do feel free to put any sort of insight or comments if I mention your state or a state that you travel to frequently. If there's some area that I need to visit when I go there the next time, put it in the comments and I'll be sure to read that, maybe in an upcoming video, or maybe I'll just respond back to you in the comments. Go ahead and do that. This video is actually a sequel to my previous one, which was ranking every state that I haven't been to yet. The 24 that I haven't been to, I rank those in order of which ones I want to visit from least to most. But this is going to be a little more accurate because I'm actually basing these states on my own personal experience. So, starting off with number 26. 26 is going to be Arkansas. Somebody has to be last on the list, and that's going to be Arkansas. There's not a whole lot going on in Arkansas, to be honest. But there is one positive thing I will say about Arkansas. I've had some of the best barbecue in my entire life there. Just going to the local restaurants, some of the best barbecue I've ever had. Pulled pork, brisket, you name it. That is some good stuff there. Number 25 is going to be Indiana. That is a flat state. Indiana is a flat state. A lot of corn in Indiana, too. Indiana... The northern part is kind of trashy, I think. It's like the suburbs of Chicago, basically. There are some nice areas in the rest of the state, but it's just really boring in my opinion. Actually, the only good thing about Indiana right now, I think, probably Caitlin Clark. The one positive. The one person there that's actually successful. Because we all know, well, the Colts are getting a little better now, but there's really not a whole lot of good going for Indiana. Alright, number 24 is their neighbor to the east, Ohio. Ohio, I've been through the bigger cities there and some of the smaller ones, but you want to talk about Cleveland, Cincinnati, Columbus. Not a lot of exciting stuff in my opinion. Kind of rundown areas. I'm sure there's a lot of cool, nice stuff there too. Fun things to do. But just from a tourist, outsider perspective, nothing really caught my eye or attention or gave me a reason to really want to go back, except for when I'm, driving through there. So that's number 24 on my list. That is Ohio. Number 23 on my list is West Virginia. Another state that's kind of empty. Not a lot going on there. I know they are known for making short appearances in March Madness before they get eliminated. But aside from that, not a lot going on there. I don't want to knock them too much because there is some decent scenery there, and I know they have some decent whitewater rafting too. I have some friends that go whitewater rafting there every year. Number 22 is Delaware. Delaware is just kind of like a drive-through highway state for me. I feel like it just kind of connects all the other more important states around it. I haven't spent a lot of time in Delaware, a little bit, but not a lot. Not a lot of time exploring. Mostly driven through it. I've spent a little time in there, but not a lot. Number 21 is Kentucky. This is probably going to give me a little bit of backlash. I don't know, maybe not. Kentucky, to me, scenic in some areas, yes. Peaceful, scenic. I didn't find it too exciting. Haven't been there in a little while. That's why it's so low on my list. I know a lot of people love Kentucky. Again, I haven't spent a lot of time there. Not really sure what I would do there, but that's number 21. Number 20 on my list is Maryland, and I will give some positives about Maryland. They really do have the best crab there. Maryland has the best crab. Now, I don't know, maybe Alaska has the best crab because they have their Alaskan king crab, but I have never been to Alaska. With that being said, the best thing that I ever did in Maryland wasn't actually in Maryland. It was in Washington, D.C., and that was exploring Washington, D.C., and going to the zoo there and all that Smithsonian stuff. That was pretty cool. But when it comes to like downtown Baltimore and the rest of the state, they do have some nice oceans and beaches and everything, but I feel like the bad kind of outweighs the good in this instance. I don't know. I don't like it. I'm not a big fan of that area. Number 19 on my list is going to be Illinois. I'll be honest, I haven't explored a lot of Illinois outside of Chicago. I really haven't. So just for the record, it's out there. Chicago was huge. I was actually surprised at how big Chicago was. That's a really big city. There were some really cool scenic parts. It was actually pretty nice. Like downtown was pretty nice. Had a good time exploring there. There was a lot to explore. It was just a really good sized, big, busy city. Got some really good food. Oh, by the way, the deep dish pizza is horrible. Here we go. Well, I hate to break it to you, but this is not a pizza. I don't care if you're mad. Disgusting. It's like a casserole. I'll leave it at that. Number 18 on my list is going to be Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is kind of a unique state. I've been through Pennsylvania quite a few times, stayed there quite a few times. I've been in Pittsburgh. I've been in Philly, which is interesting. There's a lot of really cool stuff there. A lot of sketchy spots too, but a lot of really cool stuff there. A lot of good food there. Much as Philly is a rival city of mine, they do have some really good food, really good Philly cheesesteaks there. Outside of those two major cities, there are actually somewhat scenic areas in the state. There are some also very flat, boring spots in the state where it's mostly Amish people, but there are some kind of nice areas that are peaceful. And then even like some of the smaller cities that are still decent size, like Scranton, it's kind of different because you have some older buildings and some older city type stuff. It's kind of cool though. It's kind of cool to explore and check out. Shout out to The Office, by the way. Number 17 is Virginia. A lot of people love Virginia, so I'm probably gonna get some hate for this one. I don't like hate Virginia, but I don't love it either. Virginia was okay. It does have some nice coastline. It has some nice beaches. I'm not a big fan of the touristy beaches, though. That's not really my style. Every time I went to a restaurant, they tried to offer me sweet tea and grits and all that stuff, all that southern stuff, and I'm not all about that. Number 16 is going to be Tennessee. This is a very popular state right now. I think Tennessee has some of the most increase in population over the past couple of years. There is a lot of really good scenery, the Smoky Mountains. Number 15 on my list is New Jersey. New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the U.S. I will say one thing about New Jersey. They have some of the best bagels I've ever had. I think they have the best bagels in New Jersey. I really think they do. I don't know if it's the water or what. But they do have some really cool cities in the north. Some sketchy areas, yes. I have a lot of friends there too, so that probably increases some bias. But we always have a good time there. And that leads me to number 14, which is a state that I have lived in for quite a few years. I've spent a lot of my lifetime in this state. This is Connecticut. Connecticut is a state that I love to complain about. I love complaining about Connecticut. Connecticut is kind of like the outcast of New England, I feel like. There are some actual nice places in Connecticut, but you could actually kind of split the state in half. You have like southwestern portion of the state, which is really a suburb of New York City. And then the rest of it, I wouldn't quite call it a suburb of Boston, but it's more of a New England type of a state. From Mystic all the way up until, I would say, New Haven I still consider that New England. There are some nice beaches. There are some really cool lighthouses. There is one in New Haven, actually. But not the nicest beaches in New England. And Mystic is my favorite part of Connecticut, which is almost Rhode Island. It's almost Rhode Island, but Mystic is my favorite spot in Connecticut. Really nice coastal area, I think. But I've been all over the state. It's a very small state. Hartford, I'm not really a big fan of Hartford. There's just a lot of annoying traffic there. There are some really nice spots in the fall. I will say Connecticut is really nice in the fall. A lot of great fall New England foliage there, especially if you're closer to like central, eastern, northern Connecticut, any of those areas. Really nice foliage. ESPN is based in Bristol, Connecticut, I've taken tours of ESPN studios. That was really cool. So that was something exciting. A lot of basketball is really big there. Of course, they have UConn, but you can always find people to play pickup basketball with, which was really nice there. You know, never a dull moment when it comes to sports. Number 13 is Michigan. I haven't spent a lot of time in Michigan. I do want to explore Michigan a lot more, especially like the Northern Peninsula, or whatever you guys call it, the Upper Peninsula. Seems to be a lot of really cool stuff on Lake Michigan and the Great Lakes in general. Like a lot of really cool scenery, places that you can go like boating, kayaking, and I do want to explore that more. Number 12, South Carolina. South Carolina, I will tell you my favorite spot in South Carolina. It's not Myrtle Beach. It is Charleston, South Carolina. Charleston is a great area. The rest of the area, I don't know what was up with their highways and their roads, but they were horrible. The roads were horrible there in South Carolina. The highways were horrible. Traffic was backed up. People were driving like 2 miles per hour. I don't know what that was all about. Number 11 is Georgia. I have been to Atlanta. Atlanta's wild. Atlanta is wild. Pretty cool coastline, a lot of really scenic areas around Savannah. Savannah is really cool. I actually like Savannah quite a bit. I do love peaches, so another plus for Georgia right there. Peach cobbler, I'll tell you what. Peach cobbler. They make a good banana pudding there too. Number 10 on my list is the state of Vermont. Vermont has a lot of just rundown areas. It really does. Rutland, trash. I'm just telling you how it is. Rutland is trash. There's a lot of other like really small town trashy areas. There really aren't any big cities in Vermont anyway. But there are some of the most scenic places in Vermont, some of the best hiking places in Vermont. Vermont does have the best maple syrup I've ever had in my entire life. And I can get to Vermont in under an hour. And it's not a very big state anyway. A lot of great lakes to kayak, to fish. Just very clean, scenic areas. So I do like that about Vermont. And in the fall time, you can't beat the fall foliage and all that good stuff. People will like book out the hotels around here, just like from way other states, just to like take pictures of this stuff. And you can always tell too, because you have all these old people walking out of the hotels with their giant cameras hanging around their necks and their binoculars, and they stop right in the middle of the road for no reason. Don't get me started. But yeah, that's Vermont, number 10. Number 9 on my list is Texas. Texas is a huge state. The heat was crazy though. I could never live there. Way too hot. Wicked hot there. But there are some cool things. A lot of good food. A lot of good food in Texas. So that's one reason it's so high on my list. A lot of really cool areas to explore. You have like historical stuff like the Alamo. You have a lot of sporting events that are always going on there, of course. None of their teams can win a Super Bowl there, it seems like. Number 8 on my list is New Hampshire. Live free or die. New Hampshire is the closest state to me that has legal fireworks. New Hampshire has a lot of the same great scenery that Vermont has, except Vermont is more of the Green Mountains and New Hampshire is more of the White Mountains. But a lot of really cool scenery there. Of course, they have Mount Washington. Everyone has to get their bumper sticker that says, "This car climbed Mount Washington," blah, blah, blah. But it is a really cool area to visit, and the state has some coastline, not a lot of big cities either. They have Manchester. I actually like New Hampshire quite a bit. There aren't really too many bad areas. Just a really relaxing state. A lot of small towns, but it's very New Englandy, and I like it a lot. Number 7 on my list. This state really surprised me a lot. I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I had an idea, but this state really did not disappoint. And this is Arizona. This is the farthest west I've ever been. Talk about hot. That was a hot state. That was a really hot state. The scenery there is insane. It was so strange being inside of like a desert state too. Not really seeing grass the entire time we were there was really, really weird. A really weird feeling. I saw like a cactus for the first time ever in person. So that was like, not ever, but the first time in the wild. So that was really cool and interesting. Those were everywhere. Desert everywhere, but the scenery was just insane. Sedona was really cool. Stayed in Phoenix. Phoenix was a really great city. Phoenix has some of the best food. And I'm telling you right now, Phoenix has some of the best food that I've had in the U.S. You know, the Grand Canyon was really cool through Flagstaff, all the different areas. But Phoenix, Tempe, Mesa, that was all really cool. It did feel a little weird though, not seeing, like, I missed seeing trees and grass and streams and lakes. That I did miss. And moving on to number 6. Number 6 on my list is the smallest state in the U.S. That is Rhode Island. Rhode Island has, I think, some of the best and most underrated coastline in the state. It's very small though, and I understand why. But some of my favorite beaches are there in Rhode Island. They are a little bit exclusive. You have to know your way around. My favorite is like that Watch Hill, Westerly area, right across from Mystic, Connecticut, actually. Rhode Island is one of my favorite states of all time. It's just like you're living right on the ocean. It's amazing. The beaches there are just so relaxing. You can see the sailboats in the distance. You can feel the ocean breeze, smell the salt air. Moving on to number 5 is Florida. Florida is insane also. Another really crazy state. So many different things going on there. So let's just start with the northern part of Florida. Jacksonville. I hate Jacksonville. You have Daytona Beach, Cocoa Beach. You know, those are the big ones, the main ones. Those are the ones on the Atlantic Ocean side. I like the beaches there. A lot of nice areas where you can kind of just park and walk around for quite a bit. A lot of really good restaurants there on the coast as well. So that was really nice. You know, they have the Everglades. They have the Florida Keys, which I would like to visit someday. I have not been there, so I can't really comment on that. But it looks cool, and I've heard a lot of good things. And then let's talk about the western side that borders the Gulf of Mexico. Those are some great beaches too. My personal favorite being like Clearwater, and then you go a little farther south to the Siesta Key beaches. Really, really nice. If anyone's ever been to the Blue Pelican in Tampa, I'm a huge fan of that restaurant. Tampa, I actually really like Tampa. Tampa is probably my favorite spot to stay in there in Florida, like as far as a big city goes. Shout out also to the Tampa airport, one of my favorite airports. A little interesting to navigate, but I do like the Tampa airport. My favorite airport of all time, I did forget this, the Sky Harbor Airport there in Phoenix. That is my favorite airport of all time. You have the Blue Springs, which are amazing. I love the Blue Springs there. You have Orlando, which has a lot of great variety of restaurants as well. Number 4 on my list is Vacation Land, also known as Maine. I usually try to visit Maine every year. I think the largest, most popular one for tourists is probably Old Orchard Beach. I'm actually not a big fan of Old Orchard Beach. I prefer some of the lesser known ones. I like Popham Beach. There's just a lot of good beaches all up and down the coast. But Maine is just amazing. Acadia National Park. Love Freeport, Maine. Kittery. Portland has some really great restaurants there. Love Portland, Maine. Moving on to number 3 on my list is North Carolina. I love the Outer Banks. I could move to the Outer Banks. The Outer Banks were amazing. You also do have a little bit of a mountain range there from the Appalachians that run through North Carolina. Number 2 on my list is my state that I live in, and that is New York. Living outside of the city, there's so much scenery. The Adirondacks, I'm telling you, in the Adirondacks, so much scenery. So kind of living in a place that's in between is nice because the Adirondacks are right there, super accessible, but still living in an area that's not the most isolated is also nice too. You know, I like to live in civilization. I don't like to live in the middle of nowhere. So it's nice being able to live in civilization, close to some big cities, but also close to a lot of scenery, a lot of nature, a lot of hiking, a lot of fishing. Western New York, I'm not really a big fan of. I'll be honest. But Buffalo, not a big fan of Buffalo. Niagara Falls is pretty cool, but Ontario does have the better side anyway. Rochester, I don't know why people live there. Don't get me started. The rest of the states, there are some cool places to visit. Watkins Glen is really cool, but it's just kind of like flat and boring. There's not a lot going on out there. But on the eastern strip of New York, just amazing scenery and some nice areas. You know, you got Saratoga Springs, Lake George, just a lot of places that people do come to visit and vacation in during the summertime. Nice place to live, and it's so close to all the New England states that it makes things very accessible. You know, you're only a couple hours from New York City, you're only 3 hours from Boston, you're less than an hour from Vermont, about 2 hours from Connecticut, about an hour and a half from Massachusetts, only a few hours from New Hampshire, and then Maine is a little farther away at like 5-6 hours, depending how fast you drive. Not bad. And then you can even go, a few hours south past Connecticut, you're in New Jersey. So you go, well, quite a few hours to the west, and then you're in Pennsylvania. That's actually a lot farther away. So, and then if you really want to take a trip a few hours north, and you're in Canada. Number 1 on my list. Here comes the bias. You guys ready for the bias? Here it is. Massachusetts. This is my birth state, but I have many reasons for this. Number 1 is pretty obvious. Boston is the championship capital of the world. I don't really care what anyone says. But we have Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, Provincetown, the best oysters in the world, Wellfleet, the best clam chowder. I will say, Maine has the best lobster rolls though, but there's still some really good ones in Massachusetts, but Maine does have the best lobster rolls, hands down. And the best lobster rolls are the cold ones, not the hot ones. Now, if you give me a hot one, I will eat it, but the cold ones are much better. Oh, I forgot to mention something about New York also. New York, we also have the best pizza here. So, I don't care what any other state says, New York has the best pizza. New Haven, Connecticut does have some really good pizza too, but overall, New York has the best pizza. No contest. Back to Massachusetts. So you have the western part of the state, like the Berkshires, very, very scenic in the fall. Some really good, nice hiking, walking, fishing areas, nice lakes and streams and rivers. Central part of the state, kind of trash. Worcester, you might get stabbed. Alright, let's keep moving on to the eastern part of the state. You go north of Boston, you have Gloucester and Rockport, Marblehead. That's my biased state rankings video. I do want to hear from you guys though. What are your favorite states? It can be your top 5, it can be your favorite state, but let me know your favorite in the comments down below, and we'll see you next time.